Okay, I've actually tried to upload this video several times, so hopefully it will finally work this time. I've also got the speakership election at the corner of my eye, seeing if any developments happen with that. I want to talk about a depressing report I came across yesterday in the Metro newspaper, and I'm using the link from my other laptop, so hopefully it won't restart or anything. This was in the Metro, and it was about a particularly callous attack on a homeless man in Blackpool. I'm not going to read out the whole report word for word, but the headline is "Pair who film brutal and unprovoked attack on homeless man jailed," and the report is by James Hockaday in the Metro. So these two thugs, basically September 24th this year, 5:30 in the morning, they beat up this homeless guy. One of them beat up the homeless guy, stamped on his head and filmed it. Harry Sharman 22 and Connor Pendergast 19 laughed as they tormented the homeless man in the doorway of a Boots in Blackpool town centre. I've seen the footage and obviously it's distressing. They're both from Blackpool and they appeared at Preston Crown Court on Friday, presumably this Friday past. Now, there's a few bits that I find a sticking point that really make me question justice. Sharman was handed a 6-month jail sentence and Pendergast will serve the same, but in a young offenders institution, even though he's 19. He's an adult. They were also each ordered to pay a £115 victim surcharge. Now, to put this in context, the victim required hospital treatment. This is a homeless man. He was only known as Jamie. It doesn't say what age he was, but he's already in a vulnerable position. He's homeless. And the level of mental health problems experienced by rough sleepers is far higher than the national average. So this is a man who was vulnerable to begin with. And these vermin laid into him. Blackpool Police Inspector David Wilson said this was an entirely unprovoked attack which was both brutal and sustained, leaving an innocent and clearly vulnerable man with extremely nasty injuries. Pendergast and Sharman should be utterly ashamed of their actions that morning. I am satisfied with the sentence handed down to them, and I hope that they use their time behind bars to reflect on the consequences of their actions. 6 months is not a proportionate sentence to this sort of crime. I would say a more realistic sentence, given that the injuries were on the victim's head, which could have induced serious brain damage, possibly even death, given that it was outside, given the circumstances. I would say between 5 and 10 years would be more plausible. I'm quoting this case, but there are many others I could quote. And it's just so there are a few things that make my blood boil more than injustice, and I consider this injustice. I don't like to criticise the police, but I don't know what Inspector Wilson is thinking by saying it's a satisfactory outcome. I looked at Lancashire Police website and the vast majority of people were astonished by that statement. 6 months for violently attacking a defenceless homeless man. It's disgusting. No reports at least who showed any sort of remorse. Sharman, particularly in his mugshot, just looks like a callous little thug. Pure contempt in his face. And I don't want to sound Victorian, as all you could tell by criminal the way they look, but so there's a few things I want to say about this. This is yet another reminder of the weakness of our justice system. We need to have a change in the system. You know, if we don't like MPs, we can vote them out of office, right? We have that opportunity this December. You don't like your MP, you have at least a choice to vote them out of office. You may or may not get your way, but you have the choice. If you don't like a particular newspaper, you can choose not to buy it. But what real empowerment is there for the public when it comes to crime and justice? Very little. Very little. The sentencing committee, judges and others in a position of authority with this really need to recognise that There is a massive public disconnect. Now, I don't believe the public will ever be 100% satisfied with the justice system. There will always be areas that people don't like, and there's the old saying, the law is an ass. But I don't think there's any excuse for saying, or for changes not being made, for the system to be more accountable. Because what is going to happen is these two thugs, I think Sharman in particular, are going to come out. They're going to do the same thing again, or they're going to kill someone. Vermin like this need to be put away because they're a danger to the public. These two are dangerous criminals. Anyone that would attack a stranger is a dangerous criminal, for no reason other than their own sick sense of fun. They weren't even mugging him, they weren't even trying to steal anything from him, which would be no justification. But this was wanton, callous cruelty. And when the police and judges say that things like they should be ashamed of themselves, it's wasted words. People like this don't feel shame. They don't have shame. The majority of criminals don't show remorse for their actions in this country. So I believe we actually need a revolution in the criminal justice system. My laptop's just restarted itself, but I've quoted most of what I want to quote here. We really need a revolution in the criminal justice system, whereby justice actually means something. Violent crime isn't a new thing. We've always had it, right? So sometimes we hear about the good old days being better in terms of crime. Not exactly. There's always been thuggery. I mean, look at Peaky Blinders. Look at any accounts of the East End slums in the late 19th century. There was plenty of thugs around then too. There was plenty of people who would attack strangers for no reason. Well, in those days it was probably for mugging purposes, but there's always been violent crime, right? So that's not a new phenomenon. But what I do believe we have seen in the last roughly 3-4 decades, I'd say probably from the 70s onwards, the 80s onwards, is a kind of acceptance of it. Not from the public, but from those in power. Now, the Tories talk tough, but, you know, we've had nine years of a Tory-led government and not much has changed. We still see weak justice. David Gauck, I believe, was a particularly weak Justice Secretary. I don't believe he really understood that the public want to see accountability in criminals. They want to see, you know, when he, for example, spoke about violent women shouldn't go to prison, that's a travesty. I just think that we need a situation where those in power, I'm thinking of the sentencing committee, and I'm particularly thinking of the judges, they need to get into the real world and understand. I mean, a judge that gives a 6-month sentence for a thug laying into a homeless man, what sort of mindset? Judges will say they can only work with the guidelines they have, but they consistently go for the lower end of the guidelines, and I suspect it's because of the fact that they think the prison population is overcrowded, so let's not send thugs to jail, or let's put them on a minimal sentence. Justice should not be determined by how many people are in jail. It should be determined on right and wrong. Simple as that. And you cannot have punishment. You cannot have justice without punishment, despite what the Green Party think. And despite what the Green Party think, justice, punishment, is not revenge. Revenge would be getting these scumbags into a room and then just beating the hell out of them, which I would dearly like to see, but I accept that we're a civilised society and we can't do that. So, they need to go to jail for a very long time, not 6 months, at least 5 years. So I just feel immensely frustrated because, you know, I can write to MPs, I could try and start petitions. I think it's going to take a lot more than that. We need a fundamental change in the system here. We need a change in mentality. We need a change in a situation whereby the public just don't have any empowerment. I am not saying that there should be mob justice. That is not what I'm saying. I am saying that there is enormous mistrust in our justice system, and it is because of cases like this. This is not the first and it won't be the last. I just find it sickening. Now, I mean, to be honest, I get so worked up by this, I have to calm myself down, and I think they're going to announce the speakership results here, so I'm going to wrap this up. On the other side of the moral spectrum, I heard about Nando's in Glasgow that is opening up their doors on Christmas Day to help the homeless, so credit to them. Nando's, Waterloo Street. I think they're going to make the announcement now on the speakership election. But I think we need a revolution in our criminal justice system. Justice must mean something. Have due process, have humane treatment, but justice must mean something. It must, and right now it just doesn't.